Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast. Find us on Facebook. Today's episode is episode 9 of season 9, Sleep No More. Gagan Rassmussen is terrified. He's recording a message to anyone. You must not watch this. You can never unsee it. He's collected footage and tried to put it in order. He doesn't fully understand what's going on, but this is what happened. This episode is written by Mark Gatiss, directed by Justin Molatinovkov. It originally aired on the 14th of November 2015 and was watched by 5.61 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Frank.
Hi, I'm Josh.
Hey, this is Brian.
Before we get into it, this is the first episode of Doctor Who to have no opening titles. I don't know if anybody caught that. The episode title and the writing credit are instead placed at the closing credits, but in Rasmussen's initial video, when it ends with that binary code going through the screen, we do see highlighted Doctor Who and Clara, like a crossword. Soldiers are getting ready for a rescue mission on a space station. One is complaining that they have even taken sleep from them. Rassmussen says all the footage is from the soldiers' point of view or from the station itself. Anyone watching it needs to pay attention. Your lives depend on it. There is no crew left on the station, but the team comes across the Doctor and Clara, who had just arrived. They run into lumbering, screaming creatures, and the Doctor recommends that they all run.
Just before we get started, I do want to say Rasmussen is very kind to his viewers because he does say, "Don't watch this."
It's kind of like, don't look down. You're gonna look down. That's how I take it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because of what happens at the end. We'll get there.
I think what I wrote. It's like he says, "Don't watch this." Well, no problem, mate.
I mean, Brian knows me. It's like, I would do that. Okay, I turn it off. It's like, I'm just
you
a
would.
rebel. I just do that. And so it's like, okay. But no, I have to watch it for this broadcast. So it's like, okay. But one thing that in the writing I did like was when he was saying, this is from their individual points of view, literally. So he gave that to us at the beginning. And so I did like that writing of, they gave it to us and we didn't pay attention to that. So.
Yeah, I think throughout that conceit of the camera, where it's coming from, they did do a good job at keeping up with that for all the various scenes where things change. But I appreciate the creativity in trying to do a new style, but it did not work as well as it maybe could have for me.
Oh, I thought it sucked on that. I mean, yes, it was really big and popular then, 2013 to 2015, 16.
Cloverfield and
Right,
Johnny D
Cloverfield.
having to leave the theater because he was getting sick. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Blair Witch and all that. So that was just so happening at that point that they're like doing it that way. And
It was
it's
trendy.
But to me, it's a false way to narrate on a lot of things. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it actually works in the story. People like the movie, it goes. This one just seemed, it's too dark. It's too jittery, what is going on. And it's just it's just supposed to be uneasy and scary. And to me, it was just annoying. It was just constantly annoying. So I listened to it to and from work. So because I knew that was going to happen. So let me just listen to it. And listening to it's not much better because it's a lot of, okay, now we have to talk this way, and yelling at each other. There was just constantly yelling. When you're listening to it, it does not feel like there are any ebbs and flows, ups and downs, quiet moments to give the explanation. To me, it's just an episode that did not come across well. And he's a great writer. You know, they write things, and he's very talented.
Is he though?
Is he though?
Is he though?
Is he though?
In his concept, in his ideas, what he's doing, but it just doesn't come out the way he thinks it does, at least in my mind.
But then that doesn't mean he's a good writer. He's a good idea.
I should say he's very talented. That's what I mean to say. He's very intelligent. I think he gets a lot of great ideas. It just needs someone to bounce it off of to a ghostwriter to kind of help him with some of the ideas.
If you think about it, even Sherlock was 50-50. So is he?
I mean, if you're not crashing sometimes, are you really going fast enough on the race course? So I get it. Yeah, like I commend the try, but yeah, this one did not work for me.
Commend the try. That's what a writer wants to hear.
Well, let's look. His first episode was Unquiet Dead, season
Very
1.
good.
Eccleston and Rose, very good. Yes. Season 2, The Idiot's Lantern with the TV.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Yeah, that no.
And then season 5, Victory of the Daleks. I would say no.
But they had some interesting points in there
Okay.
from the story point of view, and so
See,
things I
but
like.
let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Okay.
Season 6, Night Terrors. I think 50-50 on that one.
No, that one was just
Yeah.
bad for me.
No, that had some scary, fun, good stuff.
See, there's the 50-50.
Yeah,
Exhibit A and B.
Yes.
Season 7, Cold War and the Crimson Horror. I'm going to say no on those.
Well, I don't mind Cold War.
Season 8, Robot of Sherwood.
Oh goodness.
Yeah. And then season 9, Sleep No More. And then we'll get another one later.
I don't know if it's the writing. I think it's the combination of like whoever was saying earlier, like the ebbs and flows weren't there, like the tone kind of sat at one place and you never got a rest from it.
But isn't that the writer's job?
Yeah, but so much of it is in the way that you can like stage a scene and give yourself some breath, where this, like, it felt at the same time like tense because everything's always moving. So they're trying to do like some typical storytelling where you have two characters talking to each other, so you need to see them like kind of the A, B, but they were doing it through the points of view. So we had kind of like camera angles that we're expecting, but they're always have to be shaky for this this style. And so maybe, like, I definitely think they got too caught up in the style and lost out on the impactful storytelling part of it. And so I don't know if that's the writer or everybody in the room who came up with it, and
Or the
there's a
showrunner.
mismatch there. Yeah.
See, I didn't think they did it all that well, because there were a lot of times when I'm like, wait, what just happened? I mean, somebody goes, oh, look, they killed Rasmussen. And I was like, wait, they did?
Yeah.
It was very hard for me to see that. And that happened a couple times. So it's like, okay, you're doing the found footage, but we still need to see it, what's going on.
But they didn't
Sorry,
kill
Josh.
him in that moment. That was like a misdirect.
Yeah, but the creature did eat him.
Oh, I see what you're saying. They probably don't have the budget for that. Well, as far as like the writing, I think it's a couple things like Auburn was saying, that there's like a mismatch going on, because his writing tends to be a little like cheesily theatrical, and like if you were to read it, it's very colorful and flowery, and fun and interesting, almost like the way Doctor Who used to be very cheesy. Like, I think I'm starting to call them like bubble wrap episodes and things like that, where it's the theatricalness sort of matched, but with the modern day, they start to put on some grittiness and more edgy aesthetics, since the Eccleston era and stuff like that. And I think his style doesn't necessarily work with that anymore. Or it's really up to the director to present what's written in a way that works. And I think so they don't always know it doesn't work until they watch the footage sometimes. And then it's like, well, it's shot. What are we going to do? That being said, I won't go on a whole thing because I'm in the minority here. Like, the shaky camera or whatever and the points of view didn't bother me at all. I just like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. And then didn't think about it after that. What I did like, I mean, yeah, it was cheesy. There's a lot of episodes of the show that, again, I just, after the first 10 minutes or so, I'm like, all right, this is a bubble wrap episode. Whether the bubble wrap is about the look or it's about the story or the atmosphere, whatever it is, it's just something like, I'm not going to enjoy this if I don't accept this. So I just flip a switch and then find what I like about it. What I really liked about this episode was the Doctor and Clara figuring out the mystery. Like, because I saw these episodes years ago, and I don't, as you hear me on our show, I very rarely remember what ends up happening until like towards the end. I'm like, oh yeah. So I was along for the ride, and I couldn't remember exactly what was going on. I had some vague memories of it. So I like seeing them figuring it out. And the whole, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but the whole sleep angle and what the big bad actually was, it was clever. It was silly. It was very, I'm sorry, what's the writer's name?
Mark Gatiss.
Mark Gatiss. It's very Mark Gatiss theatrical. Like, isn't this a fun idea? But it's almost like the Weeping Angels, even though that is much more clever, where it's just something mundane in our lives that you put something fantastical on. I think it was good that they left figuring it out to almost the very end, because it was really silly.
Yeah. So to what you said, there's DVD commentary on this episode, and Mark Gatiss is a big fan of found footage horror movies. So,
well, there you go.
I think his love of that type of subgenre overtook some of the story aspects, because you kind of see the story aspects, like what you're mentioning, that there's a mystery. The Doctor and Clara are on the station, and they're like, "Is this a space restaurant? Is this you can't just put space in front of something and make it spacey."
Right.
I like that. And then it kind of devolves into something else with the style over the substance.
Oh, and let me throw one more thing in, and then I'll just interject for the rest of our show, because I think you guys are going to have a lot more to say about it than me. That for a while I was like, I had a thought like, oh, are they all asleep? Like, I was thinking like they were all in the sleep pods. That's why nothing really made sense. So there's no cameras really, or this, that, the other, and stuff. So for a while I was going along with like, that's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to be. When Clara got sucked in, it kind of gave us the hint that they're all asleep and this is a dream. Like in many episodes of the X-Files or this, that, or the other, we've seen that. I even think we saw it in an episode of Doctor Who at some point.
Yeah, we did.
Christmas, yeah.
Yeah. That's right. So I was sort of under that impression, but then things would happen that that would conflict with that.
Negated that.
That negated that. So and I just went along with it. And then whenever, again, he's so watchable, and I really love I really just love their chemistry, which is what I'll comment more on in our next episode. But so I just lean into that when stuff gets bubble wrappy.
Yeah, because like we said, we enjoy seeing or alluding to the Doctor and the companion doing stuff non-adventure or non-episode like. Like they'll just jump into something. That's what this feels like, but we're coming at it from the soldiers' angle, because they're going to a space restaurant or something, and then they stumble upon the soldiers stumble upon them. So I kind of like that. It made me think of what we talked about.
I mean, I really do like their entrance into this episode.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
When I was listening to it, it just felt like it was a clip show from previous episodes. The beginning, talking directly to us, reminded me of Bells of St. John, where the computer, people are trapped, where am I? It had that same feeling. The Grunt was like rebel flesh, grown to be in dangerous positions where we do not want humans to go. Inside the TARDIS, when Clara's going around and there are those two beings that are chasing her, it's like that felt like the Sandmen in the corridors. It just seemed reminiscent of how they were just deformed.
But just real
at
quick,
one point they're always hungry.
I thought you said.
Hungry. Sorry. At one point they said they were hungry, which reminded me of The Wire. That she's already hungry, and then of course Amy with the sand in her eye. So it's just like all these things as I'm listening to it, going, this is just a highlight of his episodes, kind of thing, thrown together in this. So that I thought was bad. I did not like. I didn't like that. It seems like it was just a regurgitated clip episode that they try to make a new one.
I was I was also getting kind of like old school vibes. I didn't know. I think I mentioned Aliens on another show this season, but kind of that Space Marine
body cam footage of the helmet cams.
Yeah. And then also, do you guys remember Sequest?
Oh yeah.
Towards I think the end of it, they had like a bioengineered soldier with the same kind of like face tattoos or face paint that
it was like Dagwood. It was one of the DeLuise brothers.
Yeah. But like this whole idea of the grunt, like real, like
right.
I mean, that I couldn't stop thinking about that watching it. Except, as to Josh's point, I think Sequest had some fitter
military
characters
personnel.
cast. Yeah. Or at least they buffed up their costumes.
Something. I mean, it's never been, again, and it's like, I don't want, it's nice to give other people a chance and they're not focused on looks and stuff like that until 2024. It is a staple of Doctor Who that no one actually looks like a soldier. So I don't get lost in that.
Yeah.
They all barricade themselves in a room. As they try to close the door, an arm tries to grab them from outside. They slam the door shut and the arm turns into dust. In the room, there are Morpheus chambers, sleep pods that give the body a full night's rest in 5 minutes. Clara gets taken inside one and holographic singers begin singing Mr. Sandman. They get her out and she feels completely rested. They discover the last pod is occupied, and when they try to open it, the singers appear again. Annoyed, the Doctor rips the holographic emitter off the pod. Inside is Rasmussen. He invented the pods so that people won't need hours of sleep and can continue working. One fun little moment in this was when Clara knew, Morpheus, you mean the god of dreams? And the Doctor does that, I'm impressed. And she just said, yeah, it's not just this, going like a pretty face. I thought that was good.
And then I thought of her being in the Netflix series Sandman. Now that, hindsight.
I didn't even think of that.
All right. And then this is another example of them shoving Jenna Coleman into confined spaces. They just can't resist.
It's so weird. Like Tarantino has his feet and Moffat has confined spaces.
Well, you work with what you have because we have such a small actress. It's just like, all right, well, we can shove her in a bunch of things. So it'll be cheaper than if we cast someone who is 5'10".
It's probably like a pet. They actually feel comfortable in a confined space.
Right.
Well, they had Karen, so they had their 5'10".
Exactly.
True.
Exactly. Well, she looked pretty fragile. She was thin and wiry. You could fold her up like a contortionist. Probably.
Okay, stop.
She's very tall.
Yeah.
Very tall.
During...
Do I have to stand next to you, tall?
I would have no problem.
During this, the style again, when Clara is captured into the pod, the camera is conveniently away from her, so we cut back to it being closed, which I thought was, that's like you're not showing, so you definitely feel like the production value savings there, especially later when Clara describes, they were like snakes that came out. And as you all know, it's much better to tell the audience what happened than to show them, being sarcastic. But I guess that was part of, maybe that's part of the issue, is that it was so much more difficult to film something like this, or they did save money where they could if there was time constraints. And I'm sure it's more harder to hit these camera angles and marks when you're whipping, more often than you're used to. So that might be also why, it didn't quite hit all those, normal levels for me.
I wouldn't be surprised if the schedule was longer because they had more camera angles to cover.
Oh yeah, can you imagine doing that coverage?
I would hate to have been the script supervisor. Can you imagine?
Oh my God.
But you guys are all talking about the production side of it. I like it because it has an in-story reason. She's talking to Chopra. Neither one of them have been in a sleep pod before, so there's no angle to show it. So I think they did do that specifically because there is no camera angle to see it there. I don't think it was just for monetary. It could have been. I mean, everything you're saying is valid in that, but I like that there was no one who could see it that could record it.
No, you're right. I wonder if they actually showed it in the script once and someone was like, but wait, how would anyone see this if neither of them were able to see it?
Or maybe that's why Chopra was over there rather than somebody else.
Right.
It's like, no, you have to be over there so we don't have to pay for this. You have to just stand over there.
Yeah, that reason is very reminiscent of Under the Lake and Before the Flood. Like, that one guy wasn't getting attacked because he hadn't read the markings on the inside the ship. But I feel like in Sleep No More, it doesn't really pay off as well.
I do think it was good that they had a story reason for doing it. But I think, again, where that disconnect is, when you're doing a found footage, horror, or anything, you're always trying to sell the audience that it's this is the real found footage. So when you can do those like long distance VFX or whatever, you're like, oh, how did they shoot that? Because it's so hard to do a shot like that. So you're trying to sell the audience on the idea that no, we really found this, and look at the fantastic things we saw in it. Where as a TV show, they have different goals, especially for a Doctor Who show. So yeah, like I get it, and I do appreciate that they were able to do it, and I think they did it as well as they could. But it's one of those things where they had the opportunity to sell me on this idea, and they did it.
Yeah, and that's why I cite Before the Flood.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you, and I think it would have been fun to have a peripheral sight of her foot being dragged in and closed. So you don't have to see the whole thing, but just part of it.
Yeah.
Peripherally, because the eyes are everywhere.
I also got a bit of I honestly can't remember the name of the trope. Is it Chekhov's gun? Is it the rule where it's like, if you see a gun in the first act, you better use it by the end of the third?
Yeah, that's it.
Clara says that these were like snakes reaching out and grabbing her and pulling her into the pod, and then that never happens again. Yeah. So that always kind of bugged me, because you were kind of expecting, okay, well, the pods are gonna have somebody's gonna wind up in the pod again, and it's going to be really important, and that just never happened.
Because they're just sleep chambers. Why would it pull you in?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Because you're tired.
You're just supposed to go in there for 5 minutes, and that's it.
I know.
I think the leader of the platoon, I think she calls back to that. Like, she mentions it later, but I could be wrong. But to Auburn's point, you should be seeing it, not saying it all the time. So I don't know.
I mean, to give it a bonus, like after Clara goes through, like almost immediately they're at Rasmussen's pod, and we get the Clara POV as she's knocking on the pod door. So I do like how, as soon as she's out of there, they're using her camera, so subconsciously, hopefully the audience is along for that ride of like what's really going on with these POVs.
Well, and the doctor notices something's different with her too.
Yeah, I liked where he's constantly looking at the camera, which is her.
Mm-hmm.
Now we never see his point of view, right? Like, he's never.
No.
Right. Okay.
We never see his, and we never see the other guys. Chopra.
Deepak Chopra.
Yeah. So the whole time we never see him.
I did like the holograms. I think they looked really good in scene.
Yeah.
And it was nice to have something out of context, like they're more unexpected in that location, I think, than like a screen or something that they would be looking at.
Yeah. It reminded me the 50s vibe reminded me of, I just watched the Fallout TV show that aired here in 2024. The whole show has that vibe, futuristic but 50s at the same time, Cold War. So,
and it was sufficiently annoying.
Yes.
Chopra was just a butt.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember he was saying that, can't they breed them to speak properly? And I just thought, well, if they did, they'd be you, dear. So it's like, it's just, they're so one-dimensional. I mean, they were just fodder. They're not, because we've seen it where they've done so much depth and so much to a character that's only in one episode or one part, that you just are invested in this character, and none of these people were that. You just weren't supposed to. It's like, no, these are not the main people.
Yeah, it was obviously a bit of an Aliens ripoff, where we got the helmet cams and they keep getting picked off one by one. I mean, it was obviously a conceit of the episode.
Well, you should notice that the soldiers, besides Nagata, they don't do anything to advance the plot. They get separated and they die. There's really not much that they do. Okay, 474 sacrifices for the other guy, but they die.
They're plot devices.
Yeah, but they don't. But they're not. They're killing time.
Stop stealing my jokes.
Because they don't advance the plot. They're just saying like, oh, the monsters can kill people, and these are the people that they kill. But they don't advance the plot.
But
every time they get,
it's just. Sorry.
Oh no, go for it.
That is sort of part of the plot. We need to see that these things happen, so that they're just pawns, pawn type guinea pigs to show us these things to up the stakes. But it's very rudimentary storytelling, to your point, where it's just like it's so basic needs that we kind of don't have any emotional attachment to it.
None.
Her name should have been Victim 1, Victim 2.
Guy.
Other guy.
They should have all been wearing red shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's the episode? Is it A Good Man Goes to War, where we learn about the female soldier and the two other soldiers that are in a relationship? I'm like, you did it better then.
Right.
Why couldn't you do it now? But I guess that's not the point.
And they didn't even give the gay couple names.
Yeah.
We're the tall, short,
Right.
military gay couple. What more name do we need?
But they gave
And
him
that
somewhat
worked.
of a
It was funny.
personality. They gave him something.
Yeah, you remember them because of their personalities.
Right. I'm looking that up. It was Lorna Bucket and Thin One and Fat One. The episode is A Good Man Goes to War from season 6.
If we're going to get into casting real things like that, the fact that Chopra, whatever his name was such a bigot, I think he was purposely cast as someone with color to kind of because it's not about race, it's about some other bigotry, and to kind of tone that down a little bit.
Grown people.
Say what? Yeah, growing people. Yeah.
What is it with the human race and Doctor Who where they just keep creating entire slave races? The Ood, the Gangers, this.
Somebody must be they're probably a fan of Blade Runner with replicants.
One isn't. Britain is dealing with its empirical past. I'm sure that's part of the some of the themes that a British writer, British people making television would come up with. But speaking of good writing, I did I think it was in this moment where the Doctor was talking about sleep and everything sleeps, even I sleep, and Clara says, when do you sleep? When you're not looking. So there's some good writing in there that I think is well thought out, but without the steady cameras, or it doesn't land like it does in some of the other episodes.
Yeah, I didn't take very many notes for this episode the first time, and I almost considered watching it again because there is a lot of good banter between the Doctor and Clara. I was like, I want to write those lines down, but I still just couldn't bring myself to watch it again.
Well, I guess you don't get the time to let stuff settle, because it gets right back into something else, where if it was a traditional show, you would get the little looks between people more, that gives you the time to register the joke or to reset.
Yeah. The Doctor believes there is a connection between the creatures and Morpheus. They are made of sleep dust. What used to be sleep in your eye is now a carnivorous life form. Suddenly, the grav shields fail and they start plummeting into Neptune. A Sandman breaks into the room and eats Rasmussen. The Doctor fixes the manatee and they run. The Doctor, Clara, and squad leader Nagata lock themselves in a freezer. Realizing that the creatures are blind, they open the door and sneak out. Oh, and Rasmussen isn't dead. Otherwise, how could he be recording the story? So there you go, Josh.
Okay, let me know if I should put put this in later. We later find out that all of the camera points of view is the sleep dust in everyone's eye. So the sleep dust can see. And if these creatures are made entirely of sleep dust, how can they not see?
That's explained. There is a line or two. Yeah,
okay.
I'm trying to remember what it is because it was really complicated. But it was the creatures gave over the optical energy into the dust. So the creatures couldn't see because the optical energy was in the dust and wasn't optical anymore, or something like that. It was a very convoluted sense of technobabble, but they did try to explain it.
That's like don't look at this. Look, what's this over here? You know,
Yeah.
hey, look over there. You know, it's just like, well, what's over there? Nothing.
Oh, I got it. Was that Rasmussen hijacked the optical so they could create his story?
Whatever.
I'll have to rewatch it again, but it's there.
They flat out say that they are made of sleep dust. Yeah. Okay. They put it in. They addressed it. They didn't just make a mistake. But
yeah, we're not saying it's good, but they did address
it. At all. But it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah. No one's, like you said, it's.
No one is saying that.
No, but that's good because someone listening to our show right now,
I ruined
hey,
their
what
fun.
about this? And then Brian just helped them. All right.
Yeah.
Check that. They checked the box, but it was only in pencil, maybe even a crayon.
Crayon, yes.
I will say this about Peter Capaldi: he is in every moment of his whole run. Like there isn't a moment where he's not 300% invested in what he's saying and doing and things.
He's great.
Doing this run through with the podcast, he's my favorite Doctor now.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Can you imagine Peter Capaldi with some of the early episode scripts? I mean, my God. I mean, of course they would have been different, but he's just great to watch. I mean, just even that one little thing where he notices something's different with Clara and he's just looking at her face. It's like, it's not overdone. It's just kind of like, and there's so much that you can read in his face. And he does that every single time.
And I think he didn't get as much credit at first because on first watch of these shows, you don't know what he's going through. So you don't even notice what you just said because you're unaware of that layer. But then when you go back and you watch these, you see like, oh, he's doing this. Now that I know where it's going, he's doing it here. And then you watch it again, you're like, oh, he's like, has like 5 layers deep of everything that he's doing. But you're never going to catch that on first watch because you're unaware of those layers. So it's a magnificent performance throughout his whole run.
You need to watch it once where you're just watching him.
Yeah. And I think that's what I've been doing, in these rewatches. And I think that's why I've been enjoying the episodes 1,000 times more than I did originally, because these few seasons are about him to me more than the story, and I've really been enjoying it.
Yeah, that's what's helped me too. It's helped me definitely in my rewatch because, like I've mentioned before, these DVDs have not been freed from their shrink wrap until very recently. And I think that, and that also helps with Classic Who for me, is to watch the dynamics between the companion and the Doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, something I didn't understand.
Sorry, it just reminded me in Comic-Con when, not Comic-Con, when they announced that Matt Smith was going away as the Doctor, and then Peter Capaldi, and then there was like an uproar in fandom, like, how dare the Doctor be this old? I'm like, what's wrong with you? So I don't know if you remember me bringing that up, but I'm like, you're not true fans of the show. You just wanted a good-looking Doctor. So maybe back to what we were discussing, like way earlier in the show, before we started recording, is that's what they're getting with Ncuti Gatwa, is that they want those folks. I'm like, that's kind of rough.
We had nieces who, when Capaldi got cast, said, "He's old. That's not the Doctor."
And see, that's my point. They're fans of Matt Smith. They're not fans of the show.
But Matt Smith was the first Doctor they had, so to them it was a big difference. They didn't realize the history of it.
Yeah, like I have a friend who hated the whole Doctor and Rose relationship because he's like, the Doctor's thousands of years old and he's this old person. He shouldn't even be caring about love and non-platonic, but because he used to watch the old show, and I was said to him, yeah, but first Doctor Who I watched was Eccleston, and I knew of Tom Baker on the Starlog magazine covers. That's it. So like I was coming from nowhere, and I thought it was really cool, and then like to look back on like this younger, even though Eccleston wasn't young, to think that this young looking person was that old was magical, made it really cool. So,
well, that's part of the genius and like the conceit of the show, right? Is that we get these opportunities over and over to meet the Doctor, to mourn the Doctor, and his or her companions. But I know, like Eugene, you said on your first viewing through many of these episodes, you were turned off, and now, like, you know, that definitely colored my view. Like, I didn't think Capaldi was a good Doctor, but definitely after rewatching these for him, like, my opinion has changed. I don't know if Nkuti will get the same like historical perspective. Hopefully, I'm not as caught up as you guys are, but hopefully he either grows into the role or the role grows into him better.
Yeah, we always go into it with optimism. I mean, at least that's what I do.
We may not even want to go into it because it's a story plot that I don't understand. Is when Rasmussen, I always want to say Rasputin, was eaten, the Doctor says that's not how they kill. But didn't we hear the first victim scream? Or is that just what Rasmussen said on the show, on his little video he put? So that was the first one to die. We all heard him scream. So it's like, well, why is it different than what happened to him? It's like, I didn't understand the Doctor. I got it where you're saying, no, it's kind of eat you up into it slowly and you become the monster. But because of the other one dying, it seems like, how does he know that's not how they kill now? It just sort of seems strange that he made that reference.
Yeah, or maybe he knew it was coming because he was part of the plot.
I mean, that's what it was supposed to, I think, just hint to for us as an audience.
Maybe there was
just to go, hey, look, that's strange. That shouldn't be that way. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Let's find him alive later. But that one just is like that I didn't get. Maybe I gotta watch that part again. But
yeah, I mean, again, like from what Brian was telling me earlier when I didn't understand, there's probably some small little thing in there that they have to. I wouldn't be surprised if these scripts are twice as long and told more visually, and then they have to just start crossing out things like, no, make this a line, make this a line, make this a line.
Right.
Well, and you had so much time spent on things that, you know, didn't forward the plot. Like the one soldier who had to sing to get into the room was like funny and like, I get it. I'm sure scientists on a space station who are going crazy will do crazy things.
I bet you that was a reference to 2001. And
with Daisy.
With Daisy? Yeah. It seems like this episode is an amalgamation of a lot of references to stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's too, like we said earlier, it's too much. It should be like maybe a handful of things instead of like 100 different things.
Yeah.
And it should never get in the way of telling your good story. Definitely felt, priorities were misplaced a little bit.
It's true. I mean, I agree.
The Doctor hacks into the soldiers' helmet cams and starts watching the earlier attack. Nagata says that they don't have helmet cams. The Doctor tells them it's the dust. Each spec is watching and recording them, and anyone who has been in a Morpheus chamber now has dust in their eyes. They go back to the ship, and the Doctor calls Rasmussen out from hiding. His plan is to use the first Morpheus client that is being kept in a pod to spread spores throughout all of humanity. He's brought the client's pod into the ship and opens it. The Doctor uses the Morpheus holo projector to play Mr. Sandman, which distracts the creature and they leave the room. Nagata kills Rasmussen. To escape the creature, the Doctor destroys the grav shields, causing them to collapse into dust. Everyone escapes in the TARDIS. Rasmussen finishes his recording. This was his plan. The real weapon is the recording itself that everyone is watching or will soon watch. He did warn us, and he collapses into dust.
This whole eye hacking thing, it reminded me of an episode from the anime Ghost in the Shell standalone complex where people have cybernetic implants and somebody hacked into somebody's eyes. And just remember that reveal being a little bit more impactful, shall we say, because there's a picture that they're looking at, and they're like, "Where's the camera?" And then that's how they go, "Oh, he hacked the guy's eyes." So in this one, I was like, "Oh, he didn't do it as well."
This, like, the action here, I think this is the part where I wrote, like, it's hard to follow. It feels almost like a theme park ride, like where they're going through the hallways, I think, real quick, and I feel like I could be experiencing this at Universal, which is good in Universal, but when you're watching a show, like this is where, yeah, stuff just got harder for me to follow along.
It just got too convoluted.
And too quick.
Yeah.
It's like you can't have that right away at the end.
And they really relied heavily on Rasmussen telling us what was going. Like he tells us just enough about what's going to happen, and then he tells us what happened in case you didn't catch it. So it's really relied heavily on that.
Yeah, a lot of show don't tell and style over substance in this.
Or a lot of tell don't show.
Sorry, yes, that's what I meant.
I will say, back to Rasmussen talking to the camera, that bit at the end where he starts to turn to dust, I thought that was pretty good. It was a little cheesy.
Yeah.
It didn't look 100% real, but it looked real enough, and his acting was good, and the way that they had him fall apart. Because sometimes you see people turn to dust and they're still talking, and it's just like, well, they wouldn't have a voice box, or this, that. The way they did it made it work, and I thought it was sufficiently creepy.
Yeah, and the ending with this being an episode that is more horror tropey.
Yeah.
The ending fits that the Doctor does not win. The villain is sort of coming out on top. And I think people forget that about horror.
Oh, I just kind of I know why, I get the whole horror motif thing, and of course that was what they were going for, and it's kind of funny. But in my head, I always just think that the Doctor materializes the TARDIS above Neptune and Triton and blows them all to hell, and that's the end of the problem.
You can write that in your fan fiction, volume 174.
Well, the Doctor did say that they have to get rid of the dust.
Yeah.
He does have to blow it up, so I'm figuring he probably still did that. Once they got out, it's like he did it. Because he knows if he doesn't, just whether or not the bad guy had the hidden message going through, and that's what really caused everything. Even if he doesn't know that, he still said, anybody coming across this will then get affected, and we have to destroy the ship. So I don't think they showed it.
Yeah.
But they left it because of the horror aspect, to go, oh yeah, there's still one left kind of thing. It's still going to go through.
And I forgot about the trope of like a video that is if you watch it you die, like The Ring. I forgot about that, to mention that.
Yeah.
It was good that he mentioned the digital like hits that they were doing, because at one point I got a little annoyed with them like being overused, it felt like. But I've worked on a few shows where we did stuff similar, but yeah, it was a lot.
Was it to hide something that you didn't want to show?
Yeah, like we would use it to get rid of time, like to cover a jump cut or something.
Right.
And so it felt like they were doing that and then adding a few extras to make the point. But I guess they like, it was nice that he connected that, so I could be like, oh, okay, I won't be as annoyed now. This aired in November. Does Great Britain have Halloween? Not like we do, right? But they probably have like a spooky time of year.
Yeah, they
do.
Adapted it.
But this is never. I don't think this has ever ended up on any of our horror lists or Halloween lists. Like
there's probably a reason.
Yeah, the show itself, that his final monologue was really scary, but and well done, but also overdone. Like it didn't feel like it had the same character as the rest. It definitely felt like that.
Yeah.
The showman is closing down and giving you the final like twist, but yeah, it wasn't earned from the rest of the episode.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
I
When
think
was
the
he a
Halloween
Sandman?
Say what?
Sorry, Frank?
When did he become a Sandman and not the actual Doctor?
Right.
Like how long has he taken that persona?
I mean, we found him in the pod, so...
Yeah, but I'm thinking, was he already done in that pod? And this is the Sandman version of him?
Yeah,
it's just sort of like, it's something that's not really important, but it's one thing that I wish...
Sure.
Answered.
But I remember my initial reaction was that he was converted inside that pod, and then when he gets out, that's when you have the Sandman version of Rasmussen. But again, it's not important. But that's just what I initially thought, and I never thought about it till now.
Well, it's like Was it until his actual body died that they were able to just take it over and create a lookalike Ginger of him? And then
because we don't see that happen to anybody else in that specific way. I mean,
right.
Well,
So-
didn't he say that they said that they needed him to do the thing, whatever it is that he does? So maybe he wasn't fully transformed because they still needed his consciousness. I don't know, man.
or
I know,
maybe
but then they were able to finally send it without him because he was dead at that point. They were just looking at him.
or maybe he needed to be like sort of gestated in the pod more because he has vision where the other ones don't.
Hmm.
To what Auburn was saying before about Halloween and what you just said, Frank, I think most of the episodes, the horror episodes that stand out to us that are Halloween-like, are usually super suspenseful and creepy. And this just did not have enough quiet, suspenseful time. It was just everything was jammed together. Maybe the conceit of different things that they were doing, like when they were in the freezer and being quiet and stuff like that, and in the bags, different things could, like on paper, seem like they were going to be, but once you put all this freneticness into the episode, it just doesn't leave you feeling uncomfortable and creeped out. You're too busy trying to play it back in your head for a minute and be like, wait, okay, so what was going on? And you're never really spooked.
Yeah, I feel like that is sort of the theme of these episodes. Let's cram as much content into one episode as opposed to let's make an episode that feels correct.
Yeah, like if you think of, is it Midnight? Is that the bottle?
Yeah, but
like there's pretty much 1.5 gags that make up that plot, you know, and it's just slowly doled out, and then even after it's established, you go back into it and you just sort of reinforce the same thing in a good way, bolstering it up, and then it's over. Whereas this is, like you just said, Eugene, it's just, this is a cornucopia of ideas.
like, let's list them off again. Cloverfield, Aliens, Blade Runner, The Ring, just like Blair Witch Project. There's a lot going
2001.
on. All right, yeah. And they're not even the same sort of genre. They're like adjacent.
Yeah.
Somewhere I heard that this was supposed to be a 2-episode.
It was supposed to be a 2-parter to fit
that
in
makes
with
a
the
lot of
season.
sense.
Oh dear God.
I will say this, you know, I checked a lot of my suspension of disbelief at the door at a certain point, and I don't want to say I enjoyed this episode because of the Doctor and Clara, but I had fun watching it. I was just a fun ride of an episode, silliness and all. I was like, all right, silliness, and they're great, and I just had fun.
Yeah.
But you know, there's definitely, I'm in 2 modes when I'm watching Doctor Who. It's just like, okay, let's just enjoy this, and like, wow, this is really good. It goes either way.
That's why I watch these episodes more than once, because it's the mood. It really helps.
Yeah. I got a small little filmmaking comment.
Sure.
And Auburn, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this too. I think this episode, I understand why it was shot the way it was shot, because it's supposed to be all like these video cameras, stuff like that. But I think the spookiness really got hurt from the video feel, you know, and not so much the film stock, because at this point it's all digital, but the lens choices and stuff, because when you use more anamorphic you use more anamorphic lenses.
Would be interesting.
Well, even though they didn't use anamorphic lenses until the Jodie Whittaker season, but the more cinematic lenses hide a lot of the silliness, like those creatures might not have looked so silly, different things. Even the performances get enhanced when you know, the lenses that are more wider or deep focus or shallow focus, you could just play with it more and make it feel more cinematic, and it kind of hides the staginess of the look. But I think that also would have killed their gimmick. So I think, again, like, that was just something that was sort of fighting it.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, a most found fiction or found footage type media, you like, some iconic shots are somebody drops a camera, right? So that then you have that camera on the ground and characters are all going and doing something in the background, or somebody is, you know, in tight quarters with the camera talking directly to it, which they did in this, but you know, you get more of that like you're seeing them react to hearing the sounds or to like whatever is coming. You get to see the characters intensity right on their face, and that builds the suspense that you were talking about. And that's their the way that they did the twist of what is actually making the images, like ruined a bunch of those possibilities, or at least they didn't like get around them enough. So yeah, you don't have as much of the quiet tension, Josh, that you're talking about, because it is all frenetic and
so
still
frenetic and
quick.
And compositionally too, it's a lot of medium shots and everything's the same size. Like with different lenses, you could make someone's really big in the foreground, something's really small, and or vice versa. You get a lot of different types of depth of focus, whereas everything's sort of the same size in the shot, so the monsters aren't really all that much bigger than the soldiers. So what's the real threat? And visually, you never really feel threatened.
Yeah.
Because I remember the Blair Witch Project was terrifying in a movie theater and was absolutely nothing on video. I was petrified because you were just immediately put on edge because you were watching this in a format that you really have never seen in a theater or rarely do. So it really called out that this is something weird, this is something new. And you watch this kind of stuff on TV, it's like, oh, this just looks like it's dark, If it's video footage, oh well, so what? We have plenty of video TV shows.
Yeah.
That being said, I do think the action in the episode, it was covered very well. Like you saw the doctor, you saw the things that needed to happen, but this is like a popcorn bucket, microwave popcorn bag of stuff just shaken up in it. And anyway.
Yeah, now that we're talking about that, it makes me feel like this should have been a more action-driven plot, the way it was covered in production, because we don't have those moments that you've mentioned, everybody's mentioned before about the quietness, because if that's what they were doing from first frame to last frame, it's not a horror piece, it's an action piece. Because horror requires the ebbs or the valleys and the peaks of tension.
Yeah.
So there is a Doctor Who extra on this, and Gaddis mentioned that he pitched this idea a while ago, and it took about, I think, back when he was writing under the Russell T Davies era. So he wanted to do that. I think they wanted to put it in Idiot's Lantern, but it didn't work out. And then when Moffat became the showrunner, he's like, let's run with that idea about the dust and the gunk in your eye becoming the monster. And I think he was also inspired by bouts of insomnia, so he kind of drew from his own experience. And I mentioned that there's DVD commentary with Mark Gatiss and Reese Shearsmith, who plays Rasmussen. And yeah, they just kept talking about how much they love found footage horror movies, and I'm like, I think you're too close to the material. You need to like take a step back in order to make a good homage to it.
Yeah, it can be hard with television because in many productions, not all of them, the pace is so fast and the deadlines are too close, and a lot of things that if it was a film or you had a longer schedule or whatever, or more breathing room, more development time, a lot of the things that you iron out with what we're talking about just don't have the time for, and you don't realize you needed the time until it's too late.
Yeah, because they mentioned this is a genre found footage that is normally for movies, and so they wanted to do it for Doctor Who. I mean, I have to applaud them for taking a risk. I just wish the risk had paid off a little better.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, and I found this funny. Like Mark Gatiss had recently gone on a trip to Japan and India, so that's why Nagata is the leader. And there's like art direction and art design, set design that is more Japanese, but we don't really see because of the dark lighting. So it reminded me of like Firefly, with Chinese being a more dominant language in that world. And then speaking of cost-cutting measures, that corridor was one corridor, and they just relit it and redressed it so that it was a different corridor in the space station.
That's great. I love stuff like that.
So going through the cast, I mentioned Reese Shearsmith playing Gagan Rassmussen, who looks like he came out of Babylon 5. His uniform.
Yeah.
Or Sequest.
More Babylon 5 with that double-breasted sort of black and white thing. Sequest was more jumpsuits
and turtlenecks.
He's a comedy guy, so he's part of a comedy team in the UK called the League of Gentlemen. He
really?
plays
Oh wow.
He plays Gerald in Foundation. He plays Furfur and William Shakespeare in Good Omens. And we previously saw him in a Doctor Who thing called An Adventure in Space and Time, and he played Patrick Troughton when William Hartnell was going to get replaced.
Really? Wow. Wow.
Elaine Tan plays Nagata. She's done a lot of TV. She was in Amazon's Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan series, Hawaii Five-0, Persons of Interest, and CSI. Neat Moohan plays Chopra. Lots of UK TV credits. Was Snacks in Ready Player One in one of their in-universe, in-movie commercials. Bethany Black plays 474. And this character was originally a cisgender woman. And then this is the first time in the series, Doctor Who, that the actor is a transgender woman playing a part. Paul Courtney Hu plays Deep-Ando. And this guy has a lot of acting credits, been acting since 1991, but just one of those working actors. Paul Davis plays the King Sandman. And then Tom Wilton and Matt Dorman play the other Sandman. Or Sandmen, I should say. And all three of them have been in like the new Star Wars franchise, Fantastic Beast, the Jurassic World franchise, and recently some of them were puppeteers in the new Ghostbuster movies. Zaina Badran plays the Morpheus presenter on the recorded digital recording prompt. Natasha Patel, Elizabeth Chung, and Nikita Chanda, and Grace Lai, they play the hologram singers for the Mr. Sandman. And then Nikki Wilson voices the Verrier Station computer voice. She's the producer on the Sarah Jane Adventures, Wizards vs. Aliens, and she is also a producer on Doctor Who, starting with the 11th Hour in 2009, all the way up to 2022 with The Power of the Doctor. So I thought that was cool that they got somebody from that side of things to do something in an episode.
That's cool. And one thing I forgot to say is I love the little moment of no, you don't get to name things. I do. No. Oh, okay. Well, what would you? Dustman? Oh, Sandman's better. So
well, I think that's a reference to something. Hold on, because I remember I'm not going to find it in time. I think it's from Flatline, where the Doctor says he prefers to name the things.
It is.
I think that's what. Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm thinking of. Okay. So again, it's like Capaldi is great.
Plus, it's also just a little bit of that Clara being more Doctor than the Doctor, and it's just in a cute little way. I don't mind it.
So, Sleep No More. Who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, fan of the show, or a diehard?
Moffat's mom.
What about Gaddis's mom?
Die Hard. You might have pushed it up one, but no, Die Hard.
You know, I don't think I've ever said this before, but I think I'm going to agree. I think Die Hard, because I would have said a casual or a fan, because it's like you don't really care about things that don't work. It's just sort of, all right, what's going on? But I don't think it's good enough to hook anybody. I think he is and she is, but they're overshadowed by all this other stuff. Like you said, it's like on second, third viewing, you really appreciate it. So I think I don't consider myself a diehard, but I think it's best for a diehard who can really see the pieces of it that are great and just forgive the rest. I liked it because of it. I kind of swim back and forth. I think it's the podcast has made me more of a diehard because I'm analyzing things so much. So I'm like a fan who dips into Die Hard every so often.
This podcast is making me not like the show.
But there's some really good stuff there, but I'd say it's like 25% and 75% is meh.
They both said it well, and I agree. Die Hard.
I'm in agreement with everything that's been said. I would classify this as a Die Hard. I really, I would not use this as an episode for anyone that I can think of in any of the other categories. Say, hey, you want to watch this? Because, I haven't revisited it.
I'll hold on to the fast forward. Okay.
Yeah.
We can get to those scenes.
For me, you may
Come on.
be able to change my mind, but I went into this thinking it's for a fan because of me having to go back and pull the good stuff out, and having people that I know that are horror fans being a different meaning of how we've coined the term fan, that they would enjoy some of this, but not 100% of it. But that's my leaning. Yeah, I think I'll switch over to Die Hard just because we have to forgive a lot, and I think that's what Die Hards do.
Take
And
a
there's
line
not
from Phoebe. Well, he caved so quickly.
Oh my God, I can't believe you caved.
No, it's just one of those things where I don't have any attachment to this, so I'm okay switching.
Have we had a unanimous Die Hard before?
I'm sure we have.
I think we have when it's been good and there's so much in it. The end of the
Oh, right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So this.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. So like it has to call back to classic Who and seasons earlier, that type of stuff. But for me, this Die Hard is because I'm a fan of horror, so I'm able to pick up on these different horror.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say homages, but they're lifting from other horror aspects and sci-fi aspects. So I think being a diehard, you have to know about all these movies to enjoy what they're going for, but then also being like, hey, you did a good try.
Yeah. And also a diehard of those films that they're referencing, like, not that I realized it in the moment, but the 2001 reference. Oh, cool. The aliens. Oh, cool. I know what they're doing. Oh, I know what they're doing. So if you can kind of get off on that nerddom of, oh, I see what they're trying to do. It's just their execution didn't really pay off. But if you really like all that stuff, it is a lot of fun to see it all in that mix.
Yeah, but a fun, not on the first view. I think that's what's really putting it into Die Hard for me. So for me, switching from fan to Die Hard, I'm not going to lose any sleep over this one. So that wraps up Sleep No More. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
Additional music is by Damiel Paggio.
Additional music by Paul Ohlers.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn, and you can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and
listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, subscribe to us on Amazon Music.
And then ask your Amazon device to play your podcast subscriptions.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sidney Newman,
Verity Lambert, Ron Grainer,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
Hey, what was that thing you were just referencing? Like, oh, I can't believe you caved. What is that from?
That's Phoebe.
Talking about Toronto.
Oh, right, evolution. Right.
Evolution, yeah. How could you have done that? Oh my gosh. How could you live? What about your life?
Your whole life.
And then the whole, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
So join us for our friends podcast, Anywho.